Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Infinite Improvement podcast with myself, Coach Christo, and of course, Coach Andres as well. This week, we're going to talk about the most important moment in our career as players, and the lessons that we learned from those experiences. So I'm going to go first. And although I'm specifically thinking of one moment, it's actually almost a string of moments throughout my career that all have something in common. And it's a story I tell very, very often. So it's actually kind of funny. I'll start with something that isn't quite the story that I'm going to get to eventually, but one of the first big moments in my career, and it's not obviously a moment that really mattered to anyone except for me. But when I was 11 years old, that's kind of when I started really, really loving the game. And I had played all my life. But when I was 11, I started, I was on a team with some other good players and I was like playing really, really well. And I was like, I just got really, really into playing. It was all I wanted to do. And we had a big game against a team that was, also doing very, very well in the little youth league that we were playing in that no one cared about. And we were playing against, another team fighting for first place. And I won a penalty. And I had never taken a penalty in an official game before. And I had never felt like anything except for excitement and happiness when I was on the field. All of a sudden, stress, pressure, all of a sudden I felt that, and I was like, what the heck is going on? I've never felt this before. I didn't know how to deal with it. Missed the penalty, went and cried after the game, was super, super upset. So, obviously, it didn't take away my love for the game or anything, but that was kind of like the first moment where I felt a lot of stress and pressure in the game. And while playing, the game that we both love so much. And I think it's interesting because that game didn't matter. No one remembers that game except for me. If you fast forward, I guess 16 years. But fast forward, 11, 12 years. And when I was playing in non-league football in England, we were playing in a local cup, and we went to a penalty shootout, and time to take another penalty. And I had taken some penalties in between in this 10 or 12 year period. And I had scored most of them, missed a couple more. I had taken a fair amount. And all of a sudden stepping out, the funny thing is I was one of the first ones, coach, we're in the huddle after the game. We just played 120 minutes. Everyone's exhausted. Everyone's a little bit nervous, excited. And our coach asks, who wants to take a penalty? And I was one of the first ones, hand goes up. Yes, I want to take one. Yeah. And I felt completely fine until I put the ball down on the spot, stood back up, and all of a sudden my legs were shaking like jelly. Hands were trembling. I felt sick. I felt dizzy looking at the goal.
This is all in 1 minute.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And looking at the goal, and it's wait, how is the goal that small and the keeper that big? Just all these little things in my head. Honestly, it was probably a miracle that I was able to even kick the ball, and goalkeeper saved it. And we lost. Felt absolutely horrible. And there's kind of two lessons that I took from this moment, because even though it was one of the lowest moments of my career and one of the moments where I felt worse than ever, when I walked back to my team, obviously my team supported me. When we hadn't lost the shootout yet when I took the penalty. So everyone was still, putting on a brave face. We did lose. But afterwards, I talked to my coach, or my coach talked to me, and he said something that really, really resonated with me, which is something that I think we all kind of know, but it's different to actually hear it from someone you trust and look up to. And he said that it meant more to him about me as a player that I was one of the first to say, yes, I want to take a penalty, than the missed it. So it's more important that you step up in those moments. And whether you fail or succeed, this is something we've talked about before, but, Michael Jordan has only made half of the winning shots that he took. There's that famous quote, of his that I've stepped up, I've missed this many times. But it's the fact that I've stepped up. That's what makes me great. And the important thing is that you put yourself in those positions to step up when your team needs you, or when you need yourself, or when someone else needs you, not necessarily the outcome. The hard part is being willing to step up. And that's the thing that I think a lot of players don't realize, is that, step up, whether you fail or succeed. As a coach, I'll notice you if you step up. I won't notice you if you hide in the background, if if you shrink, if you play within yourself. And then the other lesson that I learned was, I went away from this game and I was like, there has to be a way to deal with this, because it's not like it happened every single game that I, had a sort of mini panic attack or something, but it had happened before. And I was like, there has to be a way to deal with this. This is an issue that I'm having. There have to be real ways. So my coach had given me a bit of motivation, but I think it's important. Something that I try to do as a coach is balance motivation with real things that you can do. So I'm not just telling you need to believe in yourself. I also want to give you a way to believe in yourself. So I went away. I was at university at the time. Went and I was doing a sports sciencey degree. And went to my professor, and I was like, this is what I want to what I want to research. I want to do something related to sports psychology and dealing with pressure. So we did some research together. We looked into it, and we came up with strategies that I could use, because I think there are always things that you can do, to kind of to take control of, if you have a problem, there's a way to solve it, or there's always something you can do to make it better. And, you might not be in control of everything. But this is how I really, started. And I think that's, something that I'm really passionate about, is the mental side of the game, obviously. And that's because of my personal experience with it. So I think it's important to, from that personal experience, I started, learning and trying to figure out some ways that I could, be a more confident player. And eventually, there's a ton of stuff out there that can help players if they actually try it. There are real strategies that you can use to build more confidence. So that's kind of my little story, and my my two lessons that I learned from that. So we could,
So is there any other practical things that you could share for a player to do? I guess the penalty scenario that you brought up is one scenario that probably a lot of players have felt. Did it ever happen, or something similar in another scenario, like maybe the first time you started a game for a new team, or an environment where showcase? I think it's probably a similar feeling. The penalty one, I guess, because everything is fixated on that play, makes it a little bit more intense. But what would be some practical things that you would tell a player to go to in that given moment? Or is it something that you do before the game and anticipate that, I might be in this moment? So if a player needed some help with that, what would be a practical thing?
Yeah. So obviously penalties are pretty it's a pretty unique situation in soccer. Things happen in other sports a lot more. Sometimes like we do, like, golf, it's like always the ball is still, it's just um, or like basketball. Obviously, there are a lot more free throws in a game that there are penalties in a soccer game.
Yeah.
So penalties were something where I think it was so focused, and some like the pressure was focused on me, and it was something that's like a little bit unique. You don't deal with it a lot in soccer. It's usually, you have your teammates to rely on in most situations, not in this situation. So it's a bit of a unique situation. So there's a ton of strategies that I've used, and I found that like probably more than anything else, I think our minds are different from each other. Like so much so that it's tough to say like this worked for me, it will also work for you, which is why I've tried to like come up with enough strategies to have something that works for everybody. So my favorite strategy is something I talk about a lot, is when you're in a high pressure situation. I didn't have a problem because I couldn't kick a ball. I could shoot from the penalty spot and score every time if the pressure wasn't there, or almost every time. Obviously, you're going to miss every once in a while. The problem was the pressure. The problem wasn't kicking the ball. I don't need to think about what I'm doing. I just need to distract myself from those negative thoughts that I'm having, right?
Yeah.
So I could kick a ball in my sleep. How do I get rid of those negative thoughts in my head? I have to think about something else. What am I going to think about? Not missing, obviously, because that's the problem. Not scoring, because if you think I'm going to score, you're going to think, or at least I am, but what if I don't? What if I don't? Like those positive thoughts can turn into negative thoughts very, very quickly. So what I do is I whistle Yellow Submarine. And my mind is there. And I probably look like an idiot while I'm doing it. But I didn't miss a penalty since I started doing that. So this could be a little bit different for different players, right? So what I have a lot of players do is sing a song inside their head, something really simple like, Happy Birthday or Christmas Carol, something like that they could sing, automatically without thinking too much, but it distracts them from negative thoughts. Other athletes, what I have them do is, if you're feeling very stressed, you take a couple deep breaths, or even just one deep breath, and you try to clear your mind. And the first thought you put in your mind after you clear it is, something that fills you with confidence. So like a short phrase. So for me, it might be something like, I am an incredible player. So you just stop, close your eyes. I am an incredible player. That's the first thought in your mind, go from there, because that first thought, that can trigger everything. I think everyone's had that situation where like you're thinking something, and you're like, how am I thinking this? What triggered this thought in my mind? It's like, and you can like trace back through your mind, that what started this thought. If you start with a really positive thought, it's easy to keep that going. If your first thought after you've kind of done that mental reset is, I am an incredible player, those are probably the thoughts that you're going to be having, is positive thoughts. Other things, I'm a big fan of, meditating every day. There's a million different ways to meditate. And different people do it differently. You can use music, you can use breathing techniques, you can do, going for a walk. Could be a form of meditation, depending what you do while you walk. You can also, listen to music while you walk. So I think like there's a lot of people think meditation is one thing, where it's a very broad thing that can help a lot of people, and you just need to find what works for you. And then, other strategies, that you can use off the field are things like, I make motivational videos for players. So in its very simplest form, what you could do is, before a game, when you're feeling really nervous, put on some YouTube highlights of your favorite player. If you can do highlights of you, that's even better. If you could do highlights of you set to a song that you like, with someone talking and hyping you up, that's even better. But obviously not every player has access to this, but I know a lot of players do watch highlights kind of to get hyped up and build that confidence. I think seeing people playing and succeeding is really powerful. There's a lot of research on that if you imagine yourself doing something well, you're more likely to do it well. So if before I go take a penalty, I close my eyes and I imagine myself taking that penalty and scoring, and I don't just think I'm going to score this penalty. You actually close your eyes, you actually see yourself, you actually feel what it's going to feel like that can be a very powerful thing. So there's a ton of different strategy I use off the field. I use this for a quick plug. I just released an 8-week mental training program. So it's on if you go to any of my social media, it's the first link in my bio. It's basically the program that I wish I could have been on as a younger player. And obviously I figured it out in the end. I feel sorry for myself. I'm glad that I missed the penalty because I probably wouldn't be here without, none of us would be here without the experiences we've had, both positive and negative. And it's and kind of like the last thing I'll say on this is that I think it's fitting that such a low moment has brought me to being like a person that, I'm proud of and doing something that I'm proud of doing. Right. And that all start, it's not all because of that moment, but I think it's important to realize that moments that are tough and moments that are full of pressure they can be your greatest opportunity, right? If you think back on the best day you've ever had, it probably wasn't a day where you slept in and then didn't do anything all day, or you just played video games or watched TV or something. It's probably a day that was difficult and you enjoyed it, not because it was easy, but actually because it was difficult, because you went out and you worked hard and you accomplished something, whether that's winning a game, whether that's, completing your degree or, whatever it is. The best things in life are not things that come very easily. They're things you're maybe going to go through a lot of hardships, with. And I think that's an important thing to remember in those moments where things seem really, really tough. Just recognize that, it is what it is. And you can either wallow in that, bad moment, or you can take that bad moment and turn it into something good. So it's so interesting how even when we watch a movie, we see the movies that capture our attention the most is when there's this feeling that the main character is not going to make it out, or the things are so bad that it's and then you're like, oh, how is it gonna? And so we enjoy watching these plots or watching how this thing goes on. But for some reason, when it happens to us, because we don't know how we're gonna come out on the other side, we actually avoid it. And it's inside of us, we actually crave these stories. And even throughout that movie, by the time the movie ends, you're like, I wish I could be like this guy, or I wish I could be like this main character. But do you actually? Because when you're taking the PK, you're suffocating, and then you want to avoid those situations. But I agree that the moments that you struggle the most are actually an opportunity to push yourself to a version of yourself that you didn't know was attainable. I think I was listening to Kobe, and he was talking about how he hires people once he was doing his his books, children's books, and he was saying I hire the people that I go and ask them how to do something, and he said I don't want the people that come to me and say I know how to do this. This is how I'm gonna do it. He's like, I want the people that are gonna come and say I have no clue how to do this, because in the process you reach a level of creativity or potential that you didn't even know was inside of you. So I wonder how many times we miss the opportunity to reach a higher level because we're afraid of something that we don't know. I think we run away from uncertainty, and I think your story is an amazing small moment in the game that even the best soccer players, Messi misses more penalties than he does free kicks. Yeah, I know.
And so I think there's inside of Messi, there's an uncertainty that when he has a PK, especially with Argentina, where he's perhaps like has more pressure.
True.
I wonder what would it be like if Messi always faded away or didn't go and take a PK. And even then, hasn't defined him as being a lesser player in the big picture. But yeah, no, I think that's a practical example and practical exercises to do, regardless of whether it's a PK or
Just
any other
stress in
scenario
general,
in
yeah, or
sports.
even stress in, you know, in just your life in general. I love that you mentioned, like, you know, we see, like, you know, heroes in movies like overcoming things. We're like, I want to be like that, and then we don't see it in ourselves, because like there's nothing worse than a story or a movie, or like that's like maybe like action or something.
Like when
Yeah,
you know that what's coming at the end, this movie sucks.
yeah, if the hero is indestructible and they succeed at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end, then it's like, what's the point? I know what's happening. But you want to see them struggle. You want to see them even fail at times, because that's what makes like the hero's journey. That's like, you know, you want to see them overcome what they maybe, like, you know, if it comes full circle, maybe like they get defeated in the beginning, but they, you know, they go away and they train and they work hard, and then at the end they succeed. Like that's what you want to see. You don't want to hear a story about a guy who was, you know, really, really good at something, and then he was really, really good at something, and that's it.
Yeah. And then even so back to the PK, there was this PK, there's this coach, and so he was talking about, he went to a penalty shootout. I can't remember if it was in the Champions League or in the World Cup of clubs. And so one of the people that is assisting with him is a water polo, one of the best water polo players to ever live. And so he has him to like kind of talk to players in these pressure environments. And I think they were going to PKs. And he said that the one thing that this guy has taught him is there's a lot of PKs in water polo. Apparently, I'm just taking that as, because I don't watch it in water polo. But he was saying there's only two things that he advised the players. One, imagine yourself celebrating after the PK, and two,
that's a good one.
the spot regardless of what's going on. Commit to your spot. So just do those two things, and I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to score 100%, but they ended up winning that penalty shootout. And normally their teams do decent, pretty well in penalties. But again, it goes back to, you're talking to players that literally can put the ball anywhere in their sleep. There's something outside of this actual technique that will make that will be the differentiator in these moments where you're fatigued, where there's pressure, where if you're the last taker versus the middle taker, there's also all these things. But yeah, that was a good example for us, or for the listeners too.
Yeah, 100%. I think like we always think that like building out those two tips, I think those are great. Like, imagine yourself celebrating. Yeah, I love that one. And then like we always think like, oh, if you have like a positive outlook on life, like if you expect things to go well and you work hard, like things will work out. It won't always be perfect, but then we kind of don't think about that in like specific situations. So like, you know, I have to be successful, not just like in general, but like I want to score this penalty. I want to succeed in this game. Can you have a positive outlook, not only long term, but also in the short term? And like, you know, use these strategies to like imagine short term success. Imagine yourself celebrating the penalty, and you know that self belief will help you. It's not 100%. It's not you're going to score 100%, but you know it will help you. You know, to go through the experience.
Yeah, and like those little, like, just practical things that would just get you through those 30 seconds. I think one thing that helped me was when I was taking penalties at the end of in my final year in college. I would obviously, practicing is a big thing, that you just put yourself in that same scenario, but it's very difficult to replicate a PK in training, even if you have a goalie and you even put scenarios in your mind. But it helped me when from doing it so much, I was like, this goal is significantly bigger than no matter what human stands in it.
Yeah.
And so like, it just automatically gave me like, I just have to put a decent pass somewhere in this big frame. And always remember that the goalie is smaller than the goal, which it's for whatever reason, a consistent comment that like, oh, the goal becomes so much smaller, and we buy it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the goal, like, no, actually, it's still bigger by like 7 times the keeper. And on top of that, if you're taking it, you're probably a good shooter. And so whatever it is to like outbalance the pressure, the doubt, even if it's fake at some moments to like, because well, you don't even know if you're gonna score now. So thinking that you're gonna celebrate might help, might not help, might not change the outcome, but that execution will probably be decrease the pressure, which increases your best output.
Yeah, obviously, like, thinking you're gonna imagining celebration, you're almost tricking your mind. Like, you've already taken the penalty, you've already scored it, even if you don't, that you haven't. But like, little tricks. Like, I think, like, if it helps, like, it's not like, you want to hype yourself up before a game. You're not there saying, I'm an okay player, but the other team's pretty good too. You're there. Like, if I'm a coach, I'm telling you, no, you're going to be the best player on this field. You are going to go and dominate this game. What kind of coach am I if I'm going to like be 100% like honest all the time and just say like, look, we're probably going to lose this game, but we're here. We might as well play anyway. Like, no, you need some of that inspiration, and you need to balance that inspiration with, strategies you can use. I think that's like kind of like the most important thing to me is like, a lot of coaches have told me like, you need to be more confident, go and play with confidence. And it's like, what can I take from that? Like, okay, but like, you can tell me I'm a great player. You can hype me up all you want. That might not work for every player. You need to balance that with like, little things that you can actually do that will build your confidence as well. And I think the balance of those two things is what really will make you dominate, at least like, the mental side of the game.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this in another episode where like, understanding pressure and that pressure only exists when what's in front of you perceive as greater than you. And so it's that moment when you perceive scoring this penalty is probably the biggest thing right now. And if you were to perceive that I'm a significantly greater player, irrelevant of this penalty situation, then the pressure decreases. So I guess that one way that I use that to deflate the pressure was, and again, Luke, that's one of the things that he actually has a hard time with, penalties. And so it was had he scored that penalty, we would have been in a significantly better situation. And him knowing how good and how influential he is to the team, he was obviously really down after missing the penalty. And I was trying to navigate like, do I text him? What do I say? What do I not say? The next one or whatever. And the only thing that came to mind was he texted me first because he was just wanted to talk about it. And the one line that came to my mind was, get used to it. It's not the last PK that you're going to miss. And so just keeping that in mind, the moment that you miss that, it completely deflates that situation and probably the next one.
Yeah.
And so again, when what's in front of you is not perceived as greater than you, I think it deflates this pressure. And like we've talked about, at the end of the day, is that pressure the only differentiator? Because Luke can shoot, or anybody that's actually taking the PK has been given the confidence from the coach, the teammates. You have the confidence from everybody around that you're the one that should do this, and from yourself. So again, deflating the arena, I think really helps.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Very important to realize, that it's, whatever happens, it's not the worst thing in the world. And like
we'll do it again, probably.
The road only gets tougher and tougher the further down you go towards whatever goal you're trying to pursue, right? So things don't get easier. You just get tougher. You get more resilient, and you have to go through those hardships to build that resilience up.
Yeah, I agree, man.
All right,
is it my time to cheer?
Yeah, it's your turn to go.
All right. So mine is not as detailed as yours into like the PK scenario, but this is a moment that when I look back, it's always there. And it was after after college, I went to it was a soccer combine. I forget it. It was, I think, in maybe Texas, but whatever. I went, I did well, but I was expecting to make whatever next round. And then I think that was the when I came back home after that combine. I think that's when it was that was it. It was like my brain realized that it was over. That like yes, I could continue to pursue it, but I think this rationale hit and like, do you actually want to continue to do this player thing and at your age and like, is it too late? And so in that moment when I left that final attempt to become a pro, um, it was a moment where like it felt like every like my last 22 to 23 years didn't make sense. Um, Having always approached, oh, this is the desired outcome, and I think one of the vivid things that kept coming to mind was the reason that I worked out, which had to do like it helps your health, but I worked out to become a professional. The reason that I ate healthy was to become a professional. The reason that I went to school was to be eligible to play so that I could become a professional. The reason I was good at home was so my parents, when I was younger, would let me go out and play pickup because that would get me closer to become a professional. Um, Almost all of the things that I did were connected to because I was going to become a professional, and it left me um, without a strong enough reason as to why am I going to go take care of my body? Why am I going to eat healthy? Why am I going to be a good student or a good work in whatever sphere? Um, so I think what that moment taught me was that um, one, it's okay to have things that will help you have better health, better morals and education. And it happened to be soccer, but it helped me understand that the soccer player stage um, was finite, um, and that it was actually the best moment for me to go back to those 5, 6 things that soccer had helped me and find a new way to feed those and understand um, why it is that I wake up every single morning, and that whether I made it professional or didn't make it professional, that was going to come to an end, and I was going to have to face this reality of, oh, all of these things, I no longer have a reason that connects to this greater goal. Um, and so I think reaching that fight night moment in the soccer career was the moment that I actually fully fell in love with the sport. And I didn't want to be involved with soccer because of what it was going to give me back. Um, I was able to see all of the things that I gained from friendships to a complete education, being not having a full status in the U.S. and that being almost impossible for an immigrant to be able to get degrees, being able to have all these other pathways to help my parents' dreams come true. That they left their country to come to the United States to give me an opportunity to have a better life than them. All these things were much greater than um, the moments that I played, and so it turned it into like I wasn't resentful that I didn't make it. I was really grateful of this portal that helped me stay healthy, do well in school, and I also knew that there's probably other ways to continue to feed this portal, and it doesn't have to um, necessarily be tied to this outcome of player. I think the way it has continued to help me is to, as a coach, now there's nothing inside of me that has become attached to being a professional coach. Um, I've realized that there's the reason that I'm in it is for the everyday session, joy, yell, scream, laugh, um, and that the moment that I start to put an end result to this version of being a footballer, um, it can become unhealthy, and then I can lose track as to why I'm being healthy, why I'm good with my family, why I'm educating myself as a coach, because I'm not getting a coaching education to become a pro, but I'm getting a coaching education to actually just learn and be better for the player that I'll see tomorrow. So I think the most important moment in my player career was the moment that it ended. Um, and it enhanced my relationship with soccer and all the things that I'm passionate about. So so yeah, I don't know if maybe this will take maybe somebody who's listening who's in a similar situation, or maybe it would help someone who is so hardworking. But it all ties back to it's because I'm gonna be a professional. And hopefully it could help you realign, not to be less passionate or to dedicate yourself less, but to almost know that why am I fully doing this? Because the player stage will come to an end regardless of who you are. Um, but yeah, I think that's where my moments and my lessons are.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the quote, athletes die twice?
Athletes die twice. I have never heard that quote.
Yeah. So it's like,
Who
you
said
know,
that? Do you know who said that?
I think it's attributed to a couple different people. Whenever I look it up, it's always like this person or this person. But yeah, and I'm sure you can, like, guess at the meaning, but like, retirement is such a, it can be such a huge, and like very, very difficult experience, for athletes, especially because so much of your identity is tied into, this thing that you've done probably, your whole
Yeah,
life. And also, most athletes aren't playing when they're, you know, mo- most athletes, retire after like high school. And then, some play in their 20s, some play in their 30s, or, at least competitively. Obviously, it's good to,
yeah,
as engaged as you can. But yeah, I think that, it can be, it's a really, really tough experience. And something that, not necessarily like, even like the final, retirement, but like I've been forced to, not even be able to play, pickup or anything, at certain times because, I had a couple injuries and I had a couple injuries, back to back to back to back. It's really,
yeah,
really tough, to just not be able to do something that's such a huge part of your life. But at the same time,
yeah.
I know I was talking to, my brother who's friends with, a super high level athlete. I forget the sport. It's something really, really weird. It's like, I forget. It's like, but he's in
It's not
Spain and he's
soccer.
like, no, it's not soccer.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's it.
I forget what it's called. It's some like individual sport that's super like, wacky and, uh, yeah. I can't believe I don't remember what it is,
Forget the
but
sport.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, and he was, talking to my brother, and my brother told me the story, but it was like, when, when the only thing in your life is your sport and your sport isn't going well, your life isn't going well. You need to
yeah,
have other things, and you need to have other things, like you were saying, like there were other things, you were working out, being a good, son, maybe a role model to, friends in your life or something, but it was
yeah,
all because of soccer. You need to have
yeah,
other, not just other things in your life, but other reasons, in your
yeah,
life, right? Like you can't, and everything can't be tied to soccer because,
yeah,
soccer might not be, it might not be there tomorrow.
yeah,
Whether that's an injury or you have to retire, you choose to go do something else. Like you need to have, like, you need to, I think like a lot of things for me start off the field and kind of come like onto the field. Like, I think like you need to figure out being a good person because being a good person is a good thing, not
yeah,
because like it will help you with opportunities, on the field. I think it's very important to take care of yourself as a person, not just as an athlete. And like, obviously, there's a balance to be struck. But you need to, have relationships with other people. I've I talk to a lot of players, or I get like or I see videos and get messages, and it's like I
Yeah,
don't have time for a girlfriend. I'm grinding. Like I'm out here
yeah.
at 5 a.m.
That's
every
another problem
morning.
that we live in this culture that the grind will get you closer.
Yeah,
Um, which it's not that I'm not about working and dedication and all that stuff, but um, I wonder at what point is it a grind or is it a drug that you're actually going to take because you just feel that you're creating this illusion that the more that you are working, whether it's fitness or on the field, you're getting close to this bigger drug that you hope to one day get there. Um, but it isn't actually you're on at you it's not actually based on the things that you are fully gifted to do. I think what that situation really helped me with was I realized that my skill sets, my talents were transferable into things outside of soccer. Um, and and I was able to. It doesn't mean I left soccer, but I was able to believe that I could be just I can stand out in places that had nothing to do with soccer using the same skill set as a person that I had within soccer. Um, and I think you limit yourself when you commit to
it's
this
the only
grind based
thing.
on this
Yeah,
outcome. You limit your experience of living. Um, but that quote is very like what you said. The athletes die twice. Um, it's true, and at the same time, you can create an environment in which you die more than twice. Like if then you become um, a coach, and then the coaching becomes the place where you want to go. I think there was a moment in which that was my next outcome, and then I had to stop myself from doing that. Um, from not from coaching, but from approaching it in that manner. Because then, if I don't become that, then I'll die a third time as
yeah.
a coach. And so, like, how many deaths can you experience in one lifetime? Which I think has been really, really eye opening to me, and it helps me when I'm with the athletes. That's one of the things that I keep most front of mind. Um, when I see the athlete so devoted to becoming professional, it almost scares me, um, regardless of how talented they are, because I've seen players that are very talented and not make it, and players who may not be as talented and make it. So again, no matter how talented you are, how much grind you put, you might not make it. It's almost it's a game of opinions, and if you put all your eggs in this one portal or one basket, you're creating a stronger potential second death or whatever, first death. I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a at the same time, it's as much as it could be an addiction. It's also almost like a love affair, and and you have to really learn how to balance and know when like this is a portal to love and to feel love and love others, or is this a portal to just feel good about myself and hope that I make to wherever I want to go with this sport? That's a tough balance that um, some people will hear it and be like, no, like I'm in it just because I enjoy soccer, but maybe they're just in it because they want to become pros and what that image gives of them. Um, but yeah, I try my best to balance those with the athletes, and knowing that like even if you told this to 15-year-old Andres,
Yeah.
I wonder if he still will brush it off and be like, forget you,
Nah.
all this like die once, die twice, like I'm gonna be a pro, like type of thing. And so like I guess the next part is like knowing even if I say this to you, I have to be okay with not being the one that opens your eyes. Um, I just brought it up to you and I still coached you and I still help you pursue your dreams. And whenever they do come to that conclusion that like, oh, being a professional wasn't the peak of the world, um, I'll remember the person that one time told me that, oh, there's more to this game than just becoming a pro. I laughed, I screamed, I got angry, I cried, I was loved, I let others love me. Um, so yeah, that's big. I think that's more for coaches to not feel that you have to open their eyes, because I guarantee you that Andres would have been like,
I
I'm gonna
know.
be a pro.
It's funny you say that because the whole reason that I started posting on social media at all is because someone asked me, a good friend of mine asked me, what advice would you give to yourself if you could go back in time and talk to yourself when you were like 13 or 14 or something? I was like,
Wait, hold on.
way too
Can you
much,
answer that?
way too much
Oh, way too
stuff
much. Okay.
to say. And I probably gave him an answer, but like he couldn't encompass everything that I want to say. I was like, maybe the younger Christo is out there somewhere. And then I thought, if I could go back in time, there is 0% chance I'd listen to myself. I was like, I was not a kid who was gonna like, I don't know. I know for a fact that if I had said some of the stuff, yeah, but like there probably is, yeah, but there probably is someone out there who is listening, someone who's listening to some of the stuff that I have to say. It won't be everyone, but I still think even if they don't listen the first time, you can still help.
Yeah.
And going to like the grind thing, like, my wife is in the other room. She was living with me in England, coming to every game. Another story that I could have told today was when I scored, the most important goal of my career, ran over to the sideline and kissed her as part of my celebration. And, I would not be the player, would not have been the player that I was without her there supporting me. Like people always think about like distractions from the game when, really like, not only, are some distractions good sometimes and can help you, but also like, you see a lot of people like say like, oh, I do this, for my family. Like I want to be a professional so I can give my family a better life. And that's great. But at the same time, like your like, are you saying that like, you're going to go train, like let's use like a really like extreme example or something like, you're going to miss your mom's like birthday or not see her on her birthday because you're out training or something all day. Like that doesn't feel right to me. Like if you really think like, are you really doing this, for her? Because I think that the relationships we have, like having good relationships with people, it takes some effort, but I think that it's effort that is well worth it because you need other people's support. No one succeeds alone in any way. We are all products of of our environments and of the people that support us, the people that don't support us. And it's, it's more complicated than that. And I think like, putting in time to do things outside of, outside of just your sport is important. One thing I wanted to say about just watching you coach, something that you said, like, I'm not coaching to be a professional coach. And I think like something that really illustrates that, that I want to mention is how passionate you are. And I've seen you coach in games and I've seen you coach at training sessions. The passion is the same. You're acting the same exact way. So many coaches I see don't care at training sessions. Like it's like they're not even there. And then at games they're yelling and screaming and it's like, like where is this passionate training? Like I'm not saying like, obviously there's like good types of passion, good times to be passionate, all of that. But like if you're going to act a certain way, I feel like it's almost like it's very telling to me if you act so differently in games because you think that's all that matters. Whereas like from you, I see like the passion is there at the training sessions, which it has to be. Honestly, for me, I probably am more passionate at training sessions than I am at games because I'm more involved. And during games, I kind of like, obviously I'm involved, but I'll take more of a, step back and let the players do their thing. Whereas at training, we're, working on this and we're working at that. In games, I want the players to they have to do it more on their own. So I'm going to let them do it more on their own.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I am more passionate during training sessions because I think what I don't if I can't get something across, and it doesn't have to be technically like, or even if it's just a feeling. I think last session there was like 5 minutes where I just went in and I did. It was just getting David to work to a level that he hasn't yet, and
The
he's so
the
skillful.
TikTok video's coming. Don't worry.
Oh, you capture that. And so it's almost useless to try to do that in a game, because there's so many other things and variables, and I have less control to like pull them aside and say like this is what I'm looking for, or grind harder, or help us defend, or press in this manner. In the game, I think a coach said it, whatever you didn't teach in the 6 days of the week, you're not going to teach it on game day. And it's almost like, yeah, like I am still passionate on game day, but it's almost nothing like, not nothing like, but in the training session is where like I try to transmit the most, and it's what I love to do. That's the moment in where I'm actually creating the game that I imagined. On the weekend, it's actually not an evaluation of how well could I pass on my passion and my tactical awareness, and help them technically. But yeah, I guess in the game, I also, there's moments where like I'll try more to do it on the side with the players ourselves, but I also try to show them, not in a way that I was talking about this with one of my mentors. She'll come watch me in the indoor games, and I'll tell her like I'm really trying to work on yelling less in games so that the players are coaching themselves in the games. And so because these games are like, there's not as much it's not an actual full league. It's not so like this is a moment where I explore my coaching strategy. And then she stopped going for a while, and then she came back and she was like, "You went back to yelling a lot." And then but we were able to identify that the yelling was more based on they need my love in this moment, and it wasn't a yelling like you did this wrong. It was like, go get the ball again, give him the ball, give this player the ball, and after the mistake continue to run. And so it's more of a, I think in games when I express my passion, it's more of to show you that you have a cheerleader in the bench that you perceive as the leader, and this leader is all in for you. And if I gotta say something, criticize anything, it will not necessarily be the yelling. It'll be on the side. But yeah, so yeah, it's and then I'm just, I guess maybe because I'm Latin,
The Latin passion.
the background,
Yeah.
it just comes out. But the one thing that I wanted to say about the grind, I think there was this video that people kept showing me when I was in college. Is, you must have heard it, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe,
Oh yeah,
then
yeah.
you'll be successful. It's, Eric Tom, and like I think he has great videos. But there's a part in that video that he talks about like Beyonce went 3 days without eating,
Oh
or because she was like doing something.
yeah.
Not
It
three
was
days, but
like
she went a certain amount of time.
yeah, 50. Yeah, 50 Cent like forgot to eat or something, right? Like it's something
Yeah.
like
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
50 Cent. Yeah, yeah.
And,
Then
no, I
somebody
think it
didn't
said
sleep.
Beyonce didn't sleep. Yeah, or Rihanna or someone like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And so there's this like um idea that the grind means decreasing uh these fundamental aspects of your existence. um, and I think it's actually the opposite. I think when your grind limits you from sleeping or from eating, or the third thing that I think is fundamental for the human is the human connection. When you have to leave relationships for the grind, I think you're actually in an addiction. And it's the same way that people will stop eating and sleeping and having healthy relationships when they go and do drugs. And so I think you have to be very careful when you talk about the grind, because I actually think that the moment that the grind means an hour less of sleep, or grind means skip a meal, or the grind means miss an important moment of a significant other or family, I think the grind has actually become a drug. Um, and that will take you on a road that you might start to see visible success in that portal, but you're actually killing yourself physically, mentally, and you're cutting the people, this invisible team around you that will actually be there, whether you're a soccer player or whether you are a hairdresser. It doesn't matter. So the grind is a tough. Uh, it needs more balance, I think, especially in this culture. Because even in college, I think like people will stay up doing essays and all this. Like, bro, like email your professor. You messed up. You need more time. It doesn't, anything that goes against your physical health, and your human connection, I think is an unhealthy relationship. And that's easier for us to say sitting here down than when you're actually an athlete.
Yeah.
But I try my best to see that, or expose that in some of the players.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like, I think like, there's a lot of stories like that about like athletes who like worked incredibly hard and stuff. And like, obviously, we're not saying you don't need to work incredibly hard. You do need to work incredibly hard. But there's definitely, a balance to be struck. I think I saw this story about Jose Mourinho and Damien Duff, who was a player who played for a couple teams in England, and never really, one of those players that like had huge expectations and never really reached his full potential. And it was something about like Mourinho, who you would think would be someone who was like, very, very strict and stuff, talking about how like, sometimes you need to take a day off of training, and it was like, the quote was like, too much water kills the flower. Too much of anything can be bad, even a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to the one of my favorite quotes of all time, because I think it applies to so many different situations, is the dose makes the poison. Right? Almost nothing is just bad for you. It's about how much you do it or how much you engage in it. Almost nothing is just good for you, because a good thing done to extreme excess, like, can be really, really, can be not good for you. And this is like something that applies in your everything. Diet, in your relationships, almost everything. I wanted to ask you, like, we talked a little bit about real strategies for, in my story. I have one thing that I like to use with players when they're very kind of like stressed about either like going pro or playing D1 in college or whatever it is. Are there any like, little strategies that you use or little things that you say to players who you've worked with who are like maybe on the verge of either going pro or not going pro, to kind of help them with that mindset and maybe not fall into the same situation that, obviously, you figured it out in the end, but obviously, it was probably a tough period for you. What things have you used with players to help that period maybe be a little less hard for them?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm gonna use the plug since you use the plug. The one way that I have approached this is with the Infinite Baller curriculums, and so last year we did a 5-month curriculum that was tailored to just this mental approach, and then we did another one this year. This one had more tactics in it, but I think to fully answer the question, that is the entire. The answer to that question is, for me, is Infinite Ballers. And so I needed to create something that would talk to the athlete with an infinite state of mind. And so when you think of footballer, I think everybody thinks as footballer as a player, a football player. But I think the reality is that when you put football player, that's a fight night relationship between you and football. It's not like when you want to become a doctor, you can become a doctor. Not that it's infinite, but it's longer. You can become a doctor all the way to 50. And so you have more time to go about that. But being a football player, I think limits that time, and then it exposes, or it gives opportunity for a more unhealthy relationship with the outcome. So what I do is, through Infinite Ballers, I present the idea that football, the relationship between you and football is infinite, but the relationship between you and your football player time is finite. And that's when I break it down. You can be a footballer your entire life, whether you're a fan, whether you're a coach, whether you're sports medicine, sports psychology, whether you do the logos for a team, whether you do social media. You can turn this into a profession, and you can be a footballer at any stage of your life. It's the player that actually comes to an end, and that's whether you make it or not. And so our curriculums in Infinite Ballers are built to that. To one, give you some additional knowledge, tactical and all of these in the football player stage, but we give you the reality that football is an infinite relationship that you can have with the game, and that we choose to limit it to player. And I think it's hard to do it in only a club environment, because they're paying to be there for their season to become better at that immediate moment. And so I felt that the only way that I could present these ideas was something that would almost supplement this, and break the narrative that once you don't make it, you can no longer be a footballer. And then you break up, or that becomes your first death. And so I think, going back to that athletes die twice, I think the thesis or the essence of Infinite Ballers is that athletes actually live your entire human lifetime. And when you translate it to football, you can be a footballer your entire. My dad is a footballer, and he's just a fan, you know.
Yeah.
And so being able to understand, and you have the ability to, whatever you do in the work environment can be done in the soccer world or football world. And so I guess, back to answering your question, breaking the idea that being a footballer is finite has really been the essence of Infinite Ballers in all the curriculums, or the, even when I do individual sessions, that's where I throw in the idea of being an infinite footballer.
Yeah, and I think, like,
which I guess, I feel like I just promoted Infinite Ballers.
No, you can promote something if it's something that is something that works, something that answers a question, right? Obviously that's what you do because you believe in it, because you saw a problem and you're trying to fix it the best way that you know how. I think it's we talked a lot about the quote, like, athletes die twice, and it made me think of your previous quote where we talked about constant recreation, which is like, maybe you don't die, you just recreate yourself, right? And wow. that's like,
for that.
Sorry. Oh, nice. Yeah, like you're it's not a death. We are constantly recreating ourselves as athletes. Even like within being an athlete, you're not the same athlete you were last year, and you're not the same person you were last year. We're constantly becoming new people, becoming new athletes, being involved in different things. And then just like one other little thing that I use with players is, I don't like to focus on the outcome. Sometimes you have to focus on the outcome. I think focusing on playing at a certain level is very toxic, because you're not always in control of that. What I like to focus on with players is, I don't know if you're going to play professionally. I don't know if you're going to play D1. Let's get you to play at the highest level that you can. That's it. If that's your goal, is you want to play at a high level, let's get you playing at a high level. Let's get you playing at the highest level that you can. Don't worry about making money. Don't worry about what team you're playing for. It's just about, the goal is, make the goal something that's more in your control. Don't focus on, like, I want to play for this team. That team might not want you. But like, if you work hard, you put in the time, and you take care of yourself, like, I believe that, like, every player can play at a high level and enjoy the game at a high level, with that work put in. Last question I have for you is, you said you're getting a second crepe. What's in the crepe? What was the first crepe?
Well, Well, before I go on to the crepes, um, one of the gratifying moments in that I have experience with approaching it this way. There was a person that I am close to, that he came to the end of his college career. Um, and we've gone back and forth in like coffees and all that stuff. And then he also wants to coach, and so he came to one of our Abbey Villa um, training sessions. And then Luke knows him, and so he went up to him. He's like, "Hey, like, what are you doing?" And then like because he had come close to he's coming close to the end of this player career. He was kind of immediately talking about, oh, what is gonna be next, or he said something along the lines of like, oh, like I'm done with this part of soccer. I'm done with being a player. And almost like giving him the idea that I'm done with football. And then Luke was like, wait, but you're just done with the player stage, right? Because you got so many other things. And so hearing somebody at 14 being able to say that to someone who is a senior in college, the language is starting to change. And so language is so important. If you could start to change the language at such a young age, I think for me, if it was just that, then I think we're doing something in the right direction. Now, with regards to my next crate,
What was the first
I
crepe?
normally go the first crepe was breakfast. So they have savory crepes here. So it was bacon, egg, there's some greens. I couldn't tell you what they are. Mayo, tomato, and then a coffee. And then I think it might be a moment for Nutella,
Yeah.
banana. I think they have like some sort of toasted almonds, maybe strawberries. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I love chocolate. I think I'm addicted to chocolate. So
The one thing I'll say is I'm a crepe connoisseur. I
Yeah.
have crepes all the time. I make crepes. And the best crepe is gonna sound crazy. The best crepe, and I have these every time I have crepes now. This is how I make them. Half Nutella, half cream cheese. You put strawberries on the Nutella. You put strawberries on the cream cheese. You put raspberries on the Nutella. Fold it up. Best crepe you'll ever have, guaranteed. So if you're listening, that's your next crepe. And my wife actually came up with this. And she was making it. The first, I was like, why are you ruining the crepes that I just made? I just spent like so much time making these awesome crepes. You're going to put cream cheese and Nutella on the same crepe. And then I had a bite and I have never gone back.
Nutella and cream cheese on the same crepe.
Yeah, it's incredible.
You didn't call the police on her.
All right,
bro. Okay, maybe I'll try it. But,
one day I'll make you crepes one day. All right. Well, thanks for listening to episode 6. Do we want to wrap up? Maybe let's wrap up with 3 kind of takeaways. Yeah. So I'll go like maybe a takeaway from my story.
Okay, go ahead.
And then a takeaway from your story.
I was going to start with Nutella and cream cheese.
Okay, yeah, true. I think like the takeaway from my story is that like it's always good to balance motivation with like practicality kind of. It's you can tell someone all day that they're a great player. They might still not believe it. It's not enough to just yell motivation. This is something that I found like, as a coach, it can be very tough. But you're always trying to balance like that motivation for the players, because it's important to motivate players. But then also you want to, give players things that they can actually do, because for some players, motivation is enough. For some players, motivation really doesn't do anything. And it's good to have like little changes of perspective. Doesn't need to be something huge, but just like little changes of perspective, something you can say to a player that they can think about. And they're like, oh, all right. Like that, the game isn't greater than you, that you'll go away from this game. And you'll be the same person. It's not going to change you if you miss one penalty or something, just like little things like that.
Yeah. I think Yeah, and I think another thing that we talked about was the grind. And I guess the one takeaway I would like people to go home with, or whenever they're executing their crafts, if if this is limiting the amount of sleep, food, or human connection, I suggest you reevaluate your relationship with this craft.
Yeah, that's 100% agree with that.
And the
All
third
right.
one, I think everybody needs to go try the cream cheese and Nutella. There's no way we leave without that one.
All right. Yeah. Let me know in the comments if you well, just tell me that you just had the best crepe of your life, because that's what it's going to be. All right. Well, thank you for listening to episode 6 of the Infinite Improvement Podcast. We're on my YouTube channel, also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon. So go give us a listen, leave a review if you want, or a rating. Those help out a lot. And yeah, let us know in the comments what you want us to talk about next, and we'll make sure to cover it. All right, but thanks for listening, and peace.
Take care, guys.